We've seen a lot lately of Donald Trump being mocked for his wannabe authoritarianism, the weirdness, how strange he behaves, the fact that he's out there selling Bibles for $49. And these are like sticky Bibles that he puts the Constitution in. He's out there selling NFTs. The whole thing is just bizarre. And I think what our country is looking for right now is one, normalcy, two, democracy. Just don't have to be doom scrolling again and dealing with all the Trump madness. What I'm liking is that President Biden is finally incorporating this into his campaign. We're going to speak in a little bit with an expert on messaging, but let me just give you some examples of what President Biden's been doing, just utterly trolling Donald Trump. So here at a recent speech, President Biden talks about how Donald Trump encouraged Americans to inject bleach, but the likely outcome of that was this. Let's play the clip.
By the way, remember when he was trying to deal with COVID, he said, just inject a little bleach in your veins. He missed it, all went to his hair. Look, I shouldn't have said that. Probably shouldn't have said that. True. You guys are a bad influence on
me. Seeing the whole crowd laughing at Trump like that. Here, President Biden at a different speech tells a story about a defeated-looking guy just asking him for a little help. Here, let's play this clip.
You know, I've already been delivering real results in a fiscally responsible way. But I know not everyone's feeling it. Just the other day, a defeated-looking guy came up to me and asked if I could help. He was drowning in debt. I said, I'm sorry, Donald, but I can't help you. Nothing I can do.
And then when talking about his tax plan and contrasting it with Donald Trump's tax plan for billionaires and decamillionaires, here's what President Biden had to say.
You know, I have to say, if Trump's stock in the Truth Social, his company, drops any lower, he might do better under my tax plan than his. Possible.
All right, we're joined by Anat Shenker-Osorio from Words to Win By, an expert on messaging, a friend of the MeidasTouch network. Anat, I know you're out with the new ad. We'll show that in a little bit, but last time we were talking about utilizing kind of mockery as an effective tool. Would love to get your analysis of what we just saw.
Yeah, for sure. Mockery at its finest. What we discussed last time and building upon it is that the essence of the strongman appeal, and however we feel about Trump, that is in fact what his appeal is to his own base, is that he's in charge. The rules don't apply to him. He is this sort of singular figure that can be relied upon to kind of create order and, you know, lead the way. And so what mockery does, we've seen not just within this campaign, but scholars of authoritarianism have told us the world over and time over, is that it makes that person seem small. It makes them seem conquerable. It makes them seem, it punctures the mythology that they are invincible. And that is absolutely essential. And so what Biden is doing there is he is very much in a tongue-in-cheek way, flipping the narrative, which, you know, we've seen in the media for arguably months now that, you know, Biden is screwed and Biden is challenged and Biden has this going on and voters are not into it. And without self-referencing and saying, I'm doing great, voters love me, which can come across as boastful or sort of difficult to credit because, of course, he's saying he's great. He is tacitly actually remitting that message by saying the opposite, by indicating how Trump is, in fact, having so much hardship that, you know, he's out begging for some spare change from Biden.
And at the same time, there's this, I think there's this yearning again for this normalcy. And I'm just not sure Americans were really focused on everything that went down under Trump. Is there something to this and not of this kind of collective amnesia, if you will? And the more we start to see Donald Trump speak again, like the people are starting to remember, oh, that guy, that guy. Do you make anything of that? Look, we're starting to see momentum shifts. I think as people are starting to pay attention. I'm not a big fan of looking at polls. I like looking at data like the actual primary results. And I see in Pennsylvania where Nikki Haley's getting like close to 150,000 votes in a closed Republican primary. That data is more significant to me than some B- poll by a Republican leaning pollster. I'll just say that. But there does seem to be a momentum shift, and I've attributed it to people starting to pay attention. I still don't think a lot of people are fully there yet. I think we're going to see that more over the summer as things start to crystallize. And people go, oh, you got an election. Do you make anything of that?
Yeah, actually, let me bring in two, I think, pretty interesting data points. The first is from none other than the New York Times Siena, which has been a source of consternation for many reasons. And I'm with you on sort of refusing to take up what my colleague Mike Podhorzer calls mad poll disease. You definitely want to vaccinate yourself against that and keep getting boosters. But there's an interesting thing in the new New York Times poll that even none other than Nate Cohn was forced to remark upon, which is that it asked the question, do you think that Trump has said offensive things? And they subdivided the answers into has said them in the past, has said them recently, has never said offensive things. And they looked at what we call the crosstabs, the sort of overlap between people who answered, yes, he has said offensive things in the past, but not recently. And there is an almost perfect match between the groups of people in that category, i.e. they're capable of viewing Trump as offensive. They are not his diehard, Trump is Jesus, we will never say he's done anything wrong. But they've been tuned out and clearly haven't heard any of the, extraordinary litany of offensive things. The group of people who are in that category, he has said offensive things, but not recently, are the most likely to have dropped in their support for Biden. So that's a pretty solid piece of evidence for the hypothesis you just put forward. The other really solid piece of evidence, and again, here, let us finger wag the media, or the mainstream media, I should say. There's been a lot of brag doesn't matter, brag is inconsequential, who cares? It's a hush money, it's, a sex cover up, it's small potatoes. In fact, both what the national polling and what our own deep dive conversations with double hater voters in battleground states very much show is that the idea that Trump is a criminal defendant, period. And voters, let's face it, cannot parse the details of this case, that case, which one is which. They're not across all of that. What they see is a small man being subject to the rules of someone else's domain, i.e. the courtroom, where he cannot do his antics and he isn't at his own rally surrounded by his own throngs of admirers. And it absolutely is consequential to them to contemplate the notion that a person who is potentially a convicted criminal, convicted by a jury, and that also matters that it's a jury, could be serving in the highest office in the land, essentially deciding which laws apply to him and which ones apply to you. And so I think both those things show that, when Trump is back on people's radars, depending how he's back, it does take them out of that memory hole that you described.
And that brings me to the ad that your team created along with Way to Win and Gutsy Media. It's called Doomscroll. It's kind of a wake-up call to the American people. Like, y'all remember this? Wake up. Let me show this ad and then let me get your take on it, why you created this, and the message that's being conveyed and the response you've seen thus far. Let's play it.
In today's news, corporate price gouging, new abortion ban.
Yes. Doom. That's all there is. Nothing can stop it. Doom.
We know things feel bleak right now. We can all feel
helpless, useless, I will suck them into despair.
But buck the up.
Wait! I need her powerless!
Come on.
Thanks!
We decide what comes next. We have made history before, and we will do it again. Let's do this.
Stop the doom and gloom and go out and do something. And not tell us about it.
Yeah, happy to give you the BTS, the behind the scenes. So one of the core purposes, if not arguably the core purpose of authoritarianism, sorry to get dark before I get light, is actually to erode the people's will to resist. And this is a very well documented phenomenon. Ruth Ben-Ghiat has written about it extensively, Jared Yates. And when you think about it, as long as we are still resisting, we are still pushing back against the efforts to take away our freedoms, to silence our voices, to not allow us to cast our votes, to not allow us to make decisions over our very own bodies, that is very costly for the authoritarian faction. They have to keep expending energy, expending money to, stop us from trying to have the lives and the futures that we want. And so if they can, as the ad says, suck us into doom, if they can get us into a place where we feel like, well, the whole system is just bunk and there's nothing that we can do, and so I might as well watch the world end in high definition or, avail myself of whichever reality TV show is most entertaining to me, then that's really the win. That is the core purpose of the authoritarian project, is to erode our will to resist. And so recognizing that, and through tons and tons and tons of different kinds of research, principally randomized controlled trial ad testing, including that we did for that completed ad, what we see is that for these double haters, for the coalition that Democrats absolutely require to turn back out, we can't begin the storyline with them with, look, Biden is magically delicious. He did this, he did this, he did this. They're not ready to hear that, and that's not convincing to them. The first thing that we have to do is actually create an intervention that disrupts this cycle of feeling that we have no agency, we have no power, there's nothing we can do. So what's going on with Doomscroll is it's actually narrating to people, hey, look, they're intentionally sucking you into this feeling of lack of agency because that is the source of their domination and power. And so that character, the villainous character, the Doomscroller, he is depicted as sort of a corporate chieftain, and that's what he's doing. And the antidote to despair, as the ad portrays, is actually action. And so that's our opening salvo as part of a larger project and process that we call Amplify, that we're doing with Way to Win and Gutsy Media. And we're happy to make that ad fully available. We definitely want to spread the word. What we've seen in testing of that ad is that it not only moves people on the metric we expected, which is desire to take action, including donate, volunteer, canvas, etc. Surprisingly, to me anyway, it moved people on vote choice. And the reason I say surprising is that usually you need to be pretty literal in ads. If you want to move people on vote choice, you actually have to name the candidate for whom you want the voting to go. And that ad is a C3 ad. It doesn't do that. We saw that it moved the general electorate on vote choice, and in particular, the cohorts that we most are concerned about, folks who aren't sure of their own registration, younger voters, voters of color, voters who are unlikely and low propensity, or what I like to call actually high potential voters. So an impactful ad, an important storyline.
It's what we always advocate for here on the MeidasTouch Network. It's not a political candidate. It's not even a political party. It's to take agency over yourself, as certain politicians want to strip you of that agency, to make you feel such in despair so that when they give you peanuts, you'll think that they're doing great work for you. When they sell you a bill of goods or a snake oil salesman comes along, you're so gullible and so in despair that you're willing to believe anything. And we always let the people know, look, this is people power. You have the power. And, I hope the example that, even our network has said of three brothers who don't have any political background, who just talk about normalcy each and every day, is an example to other people that like, you can do this too. It's just, you got to get out there and you got to talk about your values, your principles. You got to talk about just being decent human beings, and you got to stop letting other people trap you in their doom scroll. And that's one of the main things that we stand for here, which is why it's always incredible to have you on here, give your commentary. And so we hope to have you back. Anat, thank you for making that great ad. Thanks for coming on this show. As always love the brilliant analysis.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody, make sure you hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subscribers by this summer. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Real quick, Meta just changed their algorithm to suppress political content. Please follow our Instagram at MeidasTouch right now as we head towards 400,000 followers so you don't miss a beat.